Hello and welcome. My name is Taylor Morganson and you are watching the North Texas Guitar Licks channel on YouTube. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to talk about how to play lead guitar, solo, melodically, or improvise in G Mixolydian, specifically over a G Rock Mixolydian backing track that I wrote specifically for this exercise and for people to practice their solo skills over. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Behind me, and I will focus in on the board here in just a little while. As you can see, I've written out what is technically known as the G Mixolydian mode or scale. Remember, to a scale, there's really two there's two aspects to a scale, and that is the tonality, which is G here, and the modality, which is Mixolydian. Could be major or minor, but in this case it's Mixolydian. That is a major mode with a flat seventh. So you can think of it as a major scale with a flatted seventh, and it's going to sound like this. Often played over a dominant seventh chord. If you don't know what that is, don't worry. We will get to that later in some other videos. But for now, all you need to know is that it's a major scale with a flat seventh. And now I'm going to give you two forms of a 3-note per string scale. So when I do focus in up on the board, you'll be able to see this a little better. The first one being 3-5-7, 3-5-7, 3-5-7 on string 6, 4, 6, 5, and 4. So 3-5-7 on the E, 3-5-7 on the A, 3-5-7 on the D, and then we're going to have 4-5-7 on the G, 5-6-8 on the B, and then 5-7-8 on our high E. The second form, oh, and also remember that you can't play that an octave up. Use your dots as a guide, so this dot is going to relate to this dot here. That's your G and octave up. Okay. The other form I'm going to give you is actually a C major scale, and they happen to share the same key signature, so we can play through a C major scale, or if you prefer an A natural minor scale is also the relative of this. So they just happen to share the same key signature. Again, different tonalities, different modalities, but in terms of having no sharps, no flats, we can go ahead and use that C major scale, which is going to start on 8, 10, 12 on the E, 8, 10, 12 on the A, and then we'll have 9, 10, 12 on the D, 9, 10, 12 on the G, 10, 12, 13 on the B, and 10, 12, 13 on the B, on the E string. Okay. Now, another scale that I might use in this exercise, and that I'm going to use, is also the G minor pentatonic scale, which hopefully you do know. So if you don't know it, that starts on 15, and then 18, 15, 17 on the A, 15, 17 on the D, 15, 17 on the G, 15, 18, 15, 18. And we'll use a couple variants of that when I get into some of these concepts. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and focus in on the board now and talk about some of the ideas that are up here. Okay, so really the first thing we need to know about this backing track is the chord progression, which I've written out here. So the first thing you'll hear is this G chord. Moving to an F, and then to C, okay, and that'll make up what we call our verse. And then the second part to that, you can see, is going to be E minor, F, G, and then B minor, C, and F. And so that's going to sound like this. Okay, so if you're sharp, you will know that in the B minor chord is actually an F sharp, okay? So we'll get into why this works and what we're going to use to get around that, because As you can see in our G Mixolydian scale here, we have a natural 7, and of course F sharp is not in G minor pentatonic either. So one of the ideas first that we're going to use is contrasting motion. So that means if the chord progression goes from G to F, it goes down from G to F, that we're going to go, that the melody is going to go up, okay? And then likewise, if we go up from F to C, the melody is going to take a downward turn, and you'll see how that works in just a second. Next, we're going to use an old idea. If you haven't seen it in my other videos, I talk about just using patterns of 3 in all kinds of different ways, and this idea of interval expansion and contraction, which you will see me doing here shortly. Second, or third, excuse me, is this idea of controlling dissonance and consonance. So when you hear the little melody that I have written for the chorus, or part 2 of this chord progression, you're going to see that there's quite a bit of clash, but it's not really going to sound like it, I don't think. But in terms of theory, in terms of notes creating dissonance, there's definitely some dissonance there, and then they're going to resolve to a consonance. And second, our fourth concept that we're going to talk about here is superimposition, and that's where this B minor comes into play, using an F natural over a B minor chord, which again has an F sharp in it. So we're going to superimpose, we're going to force this scale on top of that B minor chord. Alright, and what it's going to do for us, no one's really going to notice, okay? We know about it now, but had I played it for you, you probably would have never known. And really all that's going to do is go back into feeding into the consonance and dissonance and controlling those and moving from one to the other. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put on the backing track now, which of course I will leave a link for, and then I will get to playing. So here. Okay, here's our backing track. There's our G chord, our F chord, C, G. Chorus now. Okay, our contrasting motion. We'll go up to a G. Now we'll go up to an A instead of going on F. Down to C. That's that expansion and contraction. Right? Minor second, up to a fifth. That's the idea. So I'm going to start on a C here and go down just like this. Remember, I start on the C here. Mixolydian tracks, we can also mix in our blues scale. Now the reason I mention C when I go into the chorus is because that tone C is definitely not in the chord E minor, and it's definitely not in B. So there's a really heavy clash if we were to put those notes in a closer range together. So that idea actually comes out sounding pretty good when you put it in a higher range. And that's what I mean by controlling dissonance and consonance. If you just take those concepts and work them into different ranges or whatever, you could come up with some pretty good ideas. So it's really about whether you're going to start on a chord tone or a non-chord tone. And then you can also see the superimposition. So when I'm playing through the actual G Mixolydian mode and that B minor comes up, there's not even really a hint of a clash there when those Fs do cross paths, that F natural and that F sharp. And that's, again, I think, one, due to the range, and what I mean by that is the high range. You can hear that low F down here, and you hear that F sharp way down here. So, again, there's not really a whole lot of, in terms of acoustic waves, clash at when they're at such extreme high and low differences, but still that dissonance is there. So we end up superimposing that idea and forcing one on another, but really what we end up doing is controlling the dissonance and consonance. It sounds pretty cool, and that comes from this idea of superimposition, where we also used, you could hear that blues scale sounded really good. There's B flats in there, you know, and that and C's and D, of course. So if we were to go through the actual tone, but really that B flats is going to clash big time with the E. That's where our tritone comes in, which doesn't sound bad. It's just it's a heavy dissonance. And then of course B and B flat are also going to have the same type of clash that B and C did. So I hope that you're able to implement your own concepts and take some ideas away from this. But just remember, I think it's a matter of trial and error and practice. All right, so again, I will leave a link for this backing track. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, please subscribe, and if you have any questions at all, let me know. You can find me on Facebook, North Texas Guitar Licks. Again, my name is Taylor Morganson, and this is the North Texas Guitar Licks channel on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.